Add Pakistan to any problem and it gets worse. And it's no different in West Asia. Islamabad is taking some worrying steps, and they're the only Muslim country with a nuclear bomb, and it looks like they're in the mood to share it. Who said that? A high-ranking Iranian general. He says that Pakistan gave them a nuclear promise. If Israel drops a nuclear bomb on Iran, Pakistan will drop a nuclear bomb on Israel. That's what he said. Listen to this.
Pakistan will drop a nuclear bomb on Israel if Israel drops a nuclear bomb on Iran.
If you thought 2025 couldn't get any worse, you were wrong. What you just saw is not fiction, it's the new nuclear reality of our world. We're talking about 3 nuclear powers. A conflict that started 5 days ago and a promise that could end badly, very badly. In this video, we'll show you how we got here and where this could take us. It all started on June 13th with Operation Rising Lion. Israel decided it could no longer wait and launched a series of preemptive strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. The goal was, of course, to prevent Iran from building a nuclear bomb. And so far, the numbers are impressive. 248 people died, with 230 in Iran and 18 in Israel. But the numbers tell only part of the story. Israel used cutting-edge technology in these attacks. Artificial intelligence helped identify targets with surgical precision. Drones were smuggled into Iranian territory to map defenses. The main uranium enrichment center in Natanz was severely damaged, with 15,000 centrifuges destroyed. Parts of the Isfahan nuclear complex were also hit. At least 14 nuclear scientists and more than 16 high-ranking military officers were eliminated. But here's the crucial point that changed everything. An unidentified Israeli official told the Wall Street Journal that assassinating Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is not off the table if Iran continues its nuclear ambitions. And believe me, this is not an empty threat. It's part of what experts call a strategy of eliminating leaders. The idea is simple: cut off the head and plunge the whole country into chaos. And it was exactly at this moment that the Iranian general Mohsen Rezaiei made his bombastic statement. Just a few hours after the Israeli threat against Khamenei, Rezaiei appeared on Iranian state television saying that Pakistan had promised nuclear support. Could this be a coincidence? Look, definitely not. Iran seems desperate to make Israel give up on eliminating its supreme leader. Now, let me tell you something fascinating that few people know. Pakistan has very specific rules about when it would use its nuclear weapons. In this case, there are 4 main triggers that they call nuclear thresholds. The first is the territorial threshold. If Pakistan loses large parts of its territory, especially vital areas like the Indus Valley, they consider using nuclear weapons. The second is the military threshold. If the Pakistani armed forces, especially the Air Force, are completely destroyed and they feel they are losing the war, the nuclear button comes into consideration. The third threshold is economic. If the country is economically strangled through naval blockades, or if its water is cut off from the main rivers, this could trigger a nuclear response. The fourth and final one is the political threshold. If the very integrity of the country is at stake, with provinces trying to secede due to external influence, this would also justify the use of nuclear weapons. These 4 thresholds were created with India in mind, Pakistan's main rival. But the question now is, would Pakistan apply these rules to defend Iran? Well, the official answer is no. Pakistan's foreign minister, Ashok Dar, was clear about that. He called the Iranian allegations irresponsible and false news, saying they were fabricated. But despite denying it, he ended with a direct threat to Israel. He said, in other words, that Israel should not dare to look at Pakistan. He also said that Pakistan has enough power to respond to any ill intentions. And he concluded by assuring that their armed forces are on full alert. This contradiction reveals something important. Pakistan wants, in a way, to maintain its image as a regional power without directly committing to a war that does not serve its interests. They are playing a dangerous diplomatic game, showing Muslim solidarity without making any real nuclear commitments. The reality is that Iran and Pakistan have a much more complicated relationship than it seems. Just 18 months ago, in January 2024, the two countries were attacking each other. Iran bombed the Pakistani province of Balochistan, killing 2 children. Pakistan retaliated by attacking alleged militants on Iranian soil, killing 10 people. Going from open enemies to nuclear allies in a year and a half is a huge leap, something hard to believe. Now, it's also important for us to compare the actual power of these 3 nuclear powers. Israel maintains a policy of never confirming or denying whether it has nuclear weapons. Everybody knows they have them, but they don't talk about it openly. Estimates indicate that Israel has 90 nuclear bombs ready, but enough material to build between 187 and 277 nuclear bombs. The most impressive thing is that Israel developed what they call the Samson option. This would be their last resort, which would be used as a form of nuclear counterattack if the country faces a life-or-death threat. The Jericho 3 missiles have a range of over 6,000 kilometers, enough to reach both Iran and Pakistan. Their Dolphin-class submarines can also launch cruise missiles with nuclear warheads. Pakistan, on the other hand, is more open about its nuclear arsenal. They have 170 nuclear weapons, almost tied with India. Most of their bombs have a yield between 5 and 12 kilotons. To help you understand better, the bomb that the United States dropped on Nagasaki had 20 kilotons. This means that most Pakistani weapons are less destructive than that historic bomb, although some can be twice as powerful. There's also an interesting technical issue. Pakistan's main long-range missile, the Shaheen-3, only reaches 2,700 kilometers. The distance between Pakistan and Israel is more than 3,000 kilometers. Mathematically, Pakistan cannot reach Israel directly from its own territory. But what if they send missiles to Iran? Then, distance is no longer a problem. What makes all of this even more dangerous is the global impact that we're starting to see. Oil prices have already risen significantly since the attacks began.
Iran has 12% of the world's oil reserves, and this year holds the rotating presidency of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. According to local authorities, Israel's bombings of the country have damaged oil and gas facilities.
Transportation costs have increased because ships are avoiding certain routes in the Middle East. Global inflation, which many countries were managing to control, could rise again. But the economic risk is minor, compared to the risk of more countries acquiring nuclear weapons. If Iran actually managed to build nuclear bombs after all these attacks, it would send a terrible message to the world that it's possible to defy the international community and get the bomb, even under extreme pressure. Even worse, other countries in the region might decide that they also need nuclear weapons to protect themselves. Saudi Arabia, in fact, has already indicated that it would consider developing nuclear weapons if Iran gets its own. Egypt and Turkey could also join this race. Instead of 3 nuclear powers in the Middle East, we could have 7 or 8 within a decade. The international system created to prevent more countries from having nuclear bombs, which has worked for more than 50 years, is being tested like never before. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons was signed to prevent exactly this kind of situation, but neither Israel nor Pakistan signed the treaty, and Iran may decide to withdraw from it. And with that, Israel faces a complex strategic dilemma. Their attacks have caused significant damage to the Iranian nuclear program. But experts question whether this will actually prevent Iran from getting the bomb. Facilities like Fordow are buried so deep that they're almost impossible to completely destroy. Israel's own national security advisor admitted that military strikes alone will not completely destroy the Iranian program. In fact, these attacks may have the opposite effect of what is intended. Instead of giving up, Iran may further accelerate its nuclear efforts, seeing nuclear weapons as the only real guarantee of its survival. Countries that feel threatened with annihilation tend to seek out the most powerful weapons available. Meanwhile, the international community is trying to mediate a way out, but the results have been quite limited. The United States, in turn, denied direct involvement in the attacks, although they praised Israel for its actions. Russia condemned the attacks and offered to mediate. The European Union called for calm, but also recognized Israel's right to self-defense. The problem is that when it comes to nuclear weapons, diplomatic negotiations only work if all parties want to avoid conflict. We are witnessing something that has never happened before in modern history. A declared nuclear power, Pakistan, is potentially being drawn into a conflict between two other regional nuclear powers. Even if Pakistan's promise is false or exaggerated, the mere fact that it is being discussed shows how the situation has gotten out of control. And the timing of this is particularly worrying. We live in an era where information spreads instantly, but not always accurately. The contradictory statements coming from Pakistan show how difficult it is to separate real negotiations from psychological warfare. Every word is carefully calculated to influence people's perception and behavior. Israel keeps its nuclear secret precisely because of this. Neither confirming nor denying gives maximum flexibility, allowing them to discourage enemies without provoking allies or triggering arms races. But this strategy only works in times of relative stability. In an active conflict, keeping secrets can become a weakness. The question that all analysts are asking now is simple. Would any of these three powers actually use nuclear weapons? In the case of Israel, the answer is probably only in the event of an absolute life or death threat. For Pakistan, only if its own vital interests were at stake, not to defend Iran. At least that's what it seems. As for Iran, which still doesn't have the bomb, the question is whether it will be able to build it. As you can see, this conflict is changing the Middle East in ways we still don't fully understand. Regardless of how it ends, the relationships between the countries in the region will never be the same again. The potential for nuclear war, however slight, has altered all strategic assessments. Meanwhile, we continue to watch to see if negotiations can still prevail over brute force, if international treaties still have meaning, and if humanity has learned enough from the lessons of the past to avoid repeating its worst mistakes on an even larger scale. Now, I want to know your opinion. Considering everything we've talked about, do you really believe that Pakistan wouldn't get involved to protect Iran? Leave your answer in the comments. And if this video helped you better understand this complex situation, subscribe to the channel and share it with those who need to know what's really happening in the world. See you next time.